Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lauren with Brown and Caldwell. Thank you to State DOT and the County Public Works Department for having us here today. It's been a really great conference so far. I know I've learned a lot and enjoyed hearing from everyone. So today I'm going to be sharing kind of a cautionary tale from Honolulu with the Department of Facilities Maintenance Stormwater Quality Division, a project that we've been supporting them with in Kailua on the windward side. This was kind of a project that illustrates the importance of community input in stormwater management projects. It's kind of an example of having a sound technical design that had support from the other city departments, but ultimately it was not built because the community felt it was not in a priority location. So I'm just going to take you through this journey, and we'll certainly have time for questions after. So thanks for your attention. So first I'm going to give a background on the genesis of the project, then kind of a high-level overview of the actual BMPs that were designed, and then I'll talk about the community engagement strategy and how that evolved throughout the project. So first, our project area is Kailua, specifically the area in the Kaelepulu watershed, which is also known as Enchanted Lake. The objectives of the project were to provide water quality improvements and pollutant removal to an area that drains into Kaelepulu Pond and ultimately Kailua Bay. We also engaged the other city departments in discussions about how to fit stormwater BMPs into other master planning objectives. We engaged with the roads division on maintenance needs and requirements to make this BMP successful in the long term. And finally, wanted to be an example for the community to see and understand some of the available stormwater BMPs that are green infrastructure, kind of distributed types of treatments, and how they could be operated and maintained over time. Those were the goals. We know that the origins of the funding, the community had been asking for a specific project, the council members secured funding, and so the city came into this project with some pretty significant constraints. The available budget was $2 million. They had 2 years to get it designed and built. And so it really needed to be located within city property because acquiring land and getting environmental or zoning permits would really complicate and further the timeline. So they also kind of wanted to meet the community's desires and had planned to do engagement throughout the project. So this project was conceived as a pilot that would provide water quality treatment to this area and fit within the constraints that we talked about. So from an evaluation of the constraints and the purpose, the city determined a good site would be Akiohala Street, which is located on the backside of Kailua High School, joins to Kailua Drive on the northwest side of Kaelepulu Pond. The street receives storm flows from the upslope hillsides and from the residential area. Akiohala Street was primarily selected because it's an unusually wide residential street. It's about 8 feet right of way. So each travel lane is about 30 feet wide with room for street parking. This meant that we could design a complete street with less impact on residents during construction and also less impact during future maintenance. 2 BMPs were selected as appropriate for this area based on the size of the drainage areas and the water quality flow calculations. So the proposed projects were a biofiltration curb extension, maybe known as a rain garden, and also a hydrodynamic separator. So I'll just share a little bit about the design of these BMPs. The biofiltration curb extension is designed to mimic the natural environment using plants, soils, and stone to capture, clean, and filter the stormwater prior to release. It's more complicated than the grass planters you typically see during or next to sidewalks. It has an engineered soil media specifically formulated to treat pollutants from stormwater and is designed to allow water to settle in the soil for treatment instead of flowing immediately to the storm drain system. The plants chosen were native plants that could thrive in these conditions. An underdrain was also proposed to collect the filtered stormwater and convey the overflows to the storm drain system after treatment. So this is just a nice little landscape sketch that we developed for the project. It was also fully designed as well. So to make sure that the curb extension was aligned with city planning objectives, we worked closely with other departments, Parks and Recreation, Urban Forestry Division. They requested adding trees to the curb extension so that we could have shade and aesthetic benefit to the area. That was quite a wrench in the design at the time, but we were able to work through that. We also worked closely with Department of Transportation Services, Complete Streets Division, so to match the build-out of a complete street on the intersecting Kailua Drive, we added a bike lane, buffer zones, and marked parking stalls that would eventually be built out to connect to the broader complete streets plan. So the width of Akiohala Street, like I mentioned, allowed us to design these improvements without taking away from the existing traffic movements. The second BMP that was considered for the area was a hydrodynamic separator that could treat the 7 acres of drainage area next to the biofiltration curb extension. A hydrodynamic separator is a very concrete structure that separates sediment, pollutants, and trash from stormwater. Water enters through the inlet into the central chamber. Pollutants are collected at the bottom of the structure, and treated water is released through the outlet. The pollutants are stored at the bottom until they're removed by a Vector truck for disposal. So compared to some of the other BMPs out there, this particular one was seen as a low maintenance option for the city, just requiring kind of annual, semi-annual Vector truck, depending on the flows. For our project, a single HDS was designed to collect flows from 2 separate storm drain systems from upstream Akiohala Place and along Akiohala Street. This was to maximize the amount of area treated by the hydrodynamic separator. To avoid flooding, 2 overflow bypass structures would also be installed on the existing storm drains that would allow flows to continue to Akiohala Channel without overflowing. Both of these BMPs were effective for the drainage areas, had low impact on the nearby residents due to the wide space, and fit the project constraints. Sounds like a perfect solution, right? Nope. So we did a lot of community engagement throughout the process. We went to the Kailua Neighborhood Board as well as their water quality subcommittee, who have been really active in advocating for improvements to stormwater management in the area. So they were really keen on getting more updates on how the city was planning to use the funds they had secured, and we went on quite a journey with them that I'll describe a little more. We ultimately went on a site visit with some of the key community members, and then worked with the council member to have town hall public meetings. We have a series coming up in the future to continue this work. So initially, our strategy with community engagement was to educate, explain, then have Q&A. So when we first went to Kailua Neighborhood Board, we thought, okay, we've got these great engineering solutions. They fit the technical constraints. We'll share some background on how this was decided, basically, and give them the rationale and benefits of these improvements. And then have the Q&A as a time where people could raise any questions or clarifications. This did not work out as planned. The community was pretty attached to solutions that they had envisioned that would be larger. There were a lot of things, right? It would have required collaboration across jurisdictions, some of the solutions that the community had wanted. So really it was a process of educating people about constraints while acknowledging there would be more opportunity for these other solutions to come in. So we adjusted our strategy. At the next community meeting, we shared our thoughts about the different solutions. We asked them to provide other solutions. So let's get everything on the table. And then we asked them for feedback on specific problem areas and water quality issues as they saw it. So a different kind of data collection, not just the technical studies that have been completed for the area, but also asking people to share their lived experiences and what they thought was important. And finally, the phase that we're in now is going to be really letting the community know that we've heard their solutions and bringing them into the evaluation process. So we'll be going through a process to pre-screen all of the community proposals and go through a pretty comprehensive evaluation before designing the next improvement. The other important thing I wanted to highlight is working with the council member. So they are really the conduit to the community in a lot of ways. We shifted our approach to involve the council member in our early planning for any public engagement. This allowed us to have a much smoother public meetings when she was on board with the approach. So some of our goals, like as an example of recent community meetings we've had, we set ground rules. So really helpful for everyone to come in with the same expectations. The community is really passionate about water quality. We set some ground rules such as assume positive intent, listen and allow others to speak, respect different opinions. And this helped keep people in a positive mindset and kind of collaborate around our shared goals to improve water quality. Some examples of the types of input that we've started asking the community for. Where do you see flooding or water quality issues? What aspects of stormwater solutions are most important? This is the kind of information that helps us in a comprehensive evaluation. We ask them what they think about the various potential solutions, and then again, for what other project ideas they might have. We set up a project website so the community could upload proposals and share areas of concern. We've been updating the website as we gain more information, and this was a really good vehicle for kind of that transparency and centralized data sharing. So just a few examples of community proposals we received. Various, channel outfall structures, hydrodynamic separators in different locations, curb inlet screens, the Kaelepulu basin berm. So just wanting to acknowledge the different ideas in the community that will go through our evaluation process. So I'm just going to summarize some of the lessons learned on this one that you might consider for your projects. One is to involve the right people early. The council member was a great partner and advocate for us and was helpful in the way we messaged our project and got the word out for community meetings. So really important to have her as an ally and not kind of throw her any curveballs. We focused on listening, so really hearing the community's ideas and concerns and tailoring our approach to meet them where they were, as opposed to coming in with a technical solution, trying to educate them about why it was the best one. We have to kind of move forward all together. We acknowledge the community can be a great resource. They have good data, good ideas, since they live there, they know. And really building trust and showing the community that we heard what they were telling us. So just like a high-level next steps. We received all of the community proposals at the end of August. We're going through an evaluation. We have a town hall coming up in October where we're gonna get their input on the pre-screening of the proposals. We'll come back in the spring with sort of the draft evaluation based on life cycle costs. So a really comprehensive way to compare projects across different scales. And then finally come back with the implementation. So what is it gonna take to get some of the projects done? And that is what I have to share for Kaelepulu. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
All right, anybody have any questions for Lauren here? Just raise your hand and I'll come to you. Oh, was that a hand? Oh, sweet, thank you.
Hi, I'm just kind of curious about what the main issues that the community had with your proposal. And then speaking about like technical, presenting technical science to non-scientists, like if you could speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, so I think the primary concern was the location. So they thought that the hillside above the rain garden or the biofiltration curve extension wasn't actually generating that much sediment. And they had observed other areas in the watershed that they felt were a much higher priority for that type of treatment. Same with the hydrodynamic separator. They thought placing that type of structure at a lower elevation in the watershed would capture, would address a larger area. And so that was part of the education is what are the other factors, right? It's not just the drainage area, but also the impacts during construction, the cost, the size of such a structure, and trying to kind of share the vision of these distributed stormwater treatments, like low impact development, help the city meet their permit requirements using things that they could actually maintain. So that was kind of the dialogue and the challenge. I think going into the whole process, the community was expecting progress on the Kailua Basin berm, which is a much different, a project that did not fit easily within the constraints given to the city with the funding and the timeline. So I think part of it's going to be working through how do we take steps toward that bigger project while making progress on some more near-term solutions. Thank you for the question.
All right, anyone else got any questions for Lauren? Oh, we got one in the back. We're not on the hook yet.
Hi, I just had a question regarding the tone and tenor of your community discussions. Have you noticed any change in that as you went through your process of adjusting your approach and having more discussions?
So in April, we had our town hall, and halfway through the presentation, well, I should say that we got through the presentation, and it was to share an update on the Akiohala Street designs. And so the community, after hearing that update and realizing that the city was still going forward with the project in that location, people were fairly upset. They were like giving all the reasons that they wanted projects in other locations. And so the council member actually pulled the director aside, and they were just, during the meeting, were like, we're canceling it, we're not doing this project. And that turned the tide completely. The community after that felt like we've been listened to, and they're not gonna force this project on us. And let's look for solutions and next steps. So it was a bittersweet moment for us as a project team, definitely a lot of lessons learned, but I think just kind of going through that with the community, I think it was educational for everyone, to be honest, for the council member, the consultants, the city, the community. That's where the tide turned, hopefully better from there. But before April, in the previous engagements, it was kind of a tentative feeling. It was like, hey, the city's sharing information about this project, and people are saying, well, we want these other things. So it all reached a head in April.
Great presentation. I want to ask you about all the different outreach that you did. You had the town hall, you had the website. What, according to you, was the best medium that you got the most response and active input from? And is there any lessons learned for future projects?
Yeah, I think going through the existing channels, the neighborhood board, the leadership with their subcommittee, the council member, so kind of reaching out to the community through those forums that they were used to attending, neighborhood board and the town halls hosted by the council member, that really drove people to be more involved in the project, visit the website, share information.
Great. Anybody else? Any stragglers? All right, thank you, Lauren. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.